I've done about 50 strategy sessions with solopreneurs in the past few months, and I've had the opportunity to listen to what they're doing, and asking questions about how they're doing their marketing, how they're doing their sales, and I've picked up on some really consistent marketing patterns. And one of them is getting stuck trying to figure out how to do things before clarifying what you're actually trying to do or why you're trying to do it in the first place. And here's what I mean. Like, I hear a lot of questions like, should I post on LinkedIn or should I post on TikTok? Should I post on YouTube? Should I try posting on all of them or should I stick to one? Should I be posting every day? Should I post a few times a week? What my headline says this. Do you think this is the right headline or should I change that? Which CRM are you using? Which one should I be using? I have a lot of, should I be a me on the website or should I be a we? Should I present myself as a business or as a solopreneur? And all of these and a bunch of other ones, they're all how related questions, and they're tactical, and they're questions that you've got to answer, obviously, but you can't really answer the tactical questions until the strategy is clearly defined. And this was, I should have had this tattooed on myself because it was drilled into my head by one of my mentors, as I was learning business, that it was tactics follows strategy. Like, trying to pick the tactics that you should be using or that you should be executing without clearly defining the strategy is like asking Google to give you the best route to a destination without telling it exactly where you're trying to go. Right. And what are you going to get? You're going to get a lot of changing directions. You're going to get a lot of wrong turns. You're going to get a lot of roadblocks that you could have avoided, backtracking, frustration, wasted time, energy. And the solution is having a clear strategy, getting really clear on the marketing strategy before you get stuck on how am I going to implement it. And that's the source of the frustration or the confusion, is trying to implement a strategy that hasn't really been clearly defined yet. So I've got 5 questions that I'll offer you that you should answer before you start diving into the tactical things, the tech and the tools and the execution. And the first is, who is your ideal client? Like, who is your perfect client? And most solopreneurs know that they need to answer this. They know that they need to define it, but committing to your marketing to an ICP, an ideal client profile, it's a lot easier said than done. Why? Because it means saying no to opportunities, and that's scary. If you are, you need clients to generate income, and saying no to opportunities seems crazy if you don't have a bunch of them lined up at the door, right? Well, that feeling of security by keeping all your options open is actually, in my view, it's a false sense of security, because what you're doing is you're letting fear of missing out on something drive what you're doing in your business, and that FOMO, that fear of missing out, it's what it leads to is it leads to really generic messaging. It leads to hitting on vanilla pain points, and it leads to offering or selling really commoditized services. And because what you've got to do, you got to go to your website and you've got to write copy that appeals to this really broad audience, which means it doesn't really, really appeal to one, right? So yes, committing to an ICP, committing to an ideal client is uncomfortable. And yes, it takes some discipline, but when you do it, it pays massive dividends, because you can start to craft your messaging and your copy and your strategy and everything that you're doing in a way that strikes an emotional chord, like that hits deep with your ideal client. So instead of kind of appealing to everyone, you really appeal to someone. And you can't really do that if you don't know exactly who you're talking to. Okay. So that's one. The second question, what problem do they need solved? All right. So your ICP, your ideal client, probably has a long list of problems that they need solved. And you might be able to help solve many of them, but what's the problem that you're going to specialize in solving, and like the one that you are best at solving, the one that is most difficult to solve, the one that produces the most value for your ideal client. Like, or are you just going to try to solve all their problems, right? So you get this ideal client, you say, okay, you've got a laundry list of problems. I'm going to try to solve all of those. And here's the thing that I've found, like if you don't settle on a specific problem that you're going to help your ideal client solve, your marketing is going to be all over the place still, because you can't move your ideal client through the different stages of marketing, through awareness, like just becoming aware of you, to having some interest, to actually having real intent, to, taking action, making decisions. You can't do that if everything's really generalized. It's very difficult. So picking a problem to solve actually helps position you as an authority, as an expert, and it boosts your credibility, and it helps your marketing. So that's two. The third one is what result do they want, or what result do they expect? And, so again, they've got problems that you want to solve. They also have a desired outcome here, and understanding the desired outcome is really important to generating marketing that's going to hit really hard. There was a Harvard Business School professor, Theodore Levitt, I can't remember how it's pronounced. But basically he said, people don't buy a 1/4-inch drill bit. They want a 1/4-inch hole, right? So when you understand that the thing that you're selling isn't necessarily what they want is the outcome of the thing that you're selling. And if you haven't clarified, if you don't know what the desired outcome of your ideal client is, you're going to get stuck talking about the mechanism that you use to deliver results, right? Instead of talking about the results that they want, right? And the mechanism is important to you because you take pride in how you do your work and what the tools that you've built, or the knowledge that you have, or the expertise that you can share. But that's less important to them. What's important to them is the transformation, the result, the outcome, the 1/4-inch hole. Okay. So when you're positioning your message around the outcomes rather than the way that you deliver them, it's going to have a way stronger impact, and it's going to get you better results. It's going to be clearer to them and set better expectations what they're getting. And that's a win-win. Okay. The fourth question is, what is the value of that result to them? And what I mean like that is, whenever someone makes a purchase, anytime someone buys anything, they want something to change as a result of that. If they're every single purchase, whether it's shoes, whether it's a car, whether it's consulting services, coaching services, they want a change. And because if there's no change to be had here, then there's no reason to spend money on it. The change can be a feeling, the change can be health, the change can be weight, the change can be like whatever it is. But if there's no change, there's no reason to buy something. And sometimes it's really easy to quantify the change, right? Like it's when we help large coaching programs, like 8-figure coaching programs, and we do our sales audit and we come in and, and help make changes, we can measure the impact of that. There was, with one example was a 90-day change that we led a coaching program from an average of $593,000 a month in sales to 1.004 million a month in sales in about 90 days. Right. So you can take that measurement and you can go, okay, cool. Like that's very clear. You can do that with a lot of professional services though, and virtually everything when you really think about it, because it may not be a direct revenue. Like sometimes it's going to be, the revenue that you help create. Sometimes it's going to be the money that you help save them by using your services. Sometimes it's going to be the value of the mistakes that they're going to avoid making by hiring you. Right. And what's the value of getting rid of people's limiting beliefs that are blocking them from reaching another level? What's the value of more efficient processes in a business? There has to be a value to that. What's the value of peace of mind? Like if that's what you help deliver a founder, an entrepreneur, or just anyone, Like, what's the value of that? What's the value of better sleep at night if that's what you do? What's the value of healthier relationships? Like, there is always a value associated with the change that you're delivering. And when you take the time to really understand that and understand the value from their perspective, it will help, like, many of the questions that you have around pricing, it will help address those. Because when you can say, relatively speaking, this is the value that I'm going to deliver, it's a little bit easier to create the pricing that goes along with it, and of course the marketing to support it all. So that's the fourth one. The fifth question is, why should they hire you? You specifically. Like, obviously you're smart. Obviously you've got some experience. Obviously, you're anxious to do a really good job for your client. Like, all of these things, you're going to give good customer service, but there are a lot of people that are smart, that are experienced, that are anxious to do a really good job. So why hire you specifically? And if you haven't created a unique selling proposition, or like a handful of objective, verifiable facts that differentiate you from everyone else in your field, then you're going to get commoditized. And this is especially true for coaches, for consultants, for fractionals, because if you're a fractional CMO, you know how many fractional CMOs there are? Like, even if you have a space, I'm fractional CMO of SaaS companies, or even B2B SaaS companies, you know how many of those there are? Why you? Right? And if you don't answer this, you get commoditized. And the way to make decisions when in a commodity world is on price, which is the last thing you want when you're selling professional services, because that usually, in one way or another, comes down to your time, right? So when I talk to solopreneurs about my coaching program, there's certain things that I lean on as part of my own unique selling proposition, right? Like, my own experience of growing my own solopreneur business from 0 to 40,000 a month, right? That's one. Being hired by some of the world's top business coaches in the world to improve the sales and sales processes and sales execution in their own internal businesses, right? People like Dan Martell, people like Robin Robbins, and others. I've held a CEO, a CMO, and a CRO role. So I've got some unique insight into revenue systems and how to generate sales and revenue. I've operated with private equity. I've operated as a mentor for VCs. I've got a proprietary framework, a process that I use to win better clients. Like, these are things like I have a unique selling proposition that I put, and that gets baked into the marketing. And those are the things that help differentiate me from the many other people that are surely in my space. Okay. So the question is, have you articulated what makes you unique, and why your ideal client should hire you and not somebody else? And those are 5 questions that'll help you get, really, like, unstuck on your marketing when you're stuck trying to figure out all of the hows, the where to post, how to post, what tech to use, what tools to use, all of the tactical stuff. These are 5 strategic questions that are going to help make the answers to those questions a hell of a lot easier. Until next Tuesday, I'll see you.